Oh my gosh. Hello, party people. Okay, so this is number 4. This is the final one. So we're just ending. If you have not seen the previous videos, please go back and watch. I'm sorry this is taking so long. We are following right now, just a quick recap in case you have not seen the other ones. We're in 2nd Chronicles. We're following right now Hezekiah. He's got a little heart because he's been an awesome king. His father Ahaz was evil, very bad. This is the northern kingdom. The chronicler does not even mention any of these guys in parentheses. This is the southern kingdom, the Davidic line, through which Jesus the Messiah comes, right? So what we're seeing here is when he takes over, he reinstitutes everything that his father had broken down. Ahaz was an evil king, had desecrated the temple, had worshipped foreign gods by killing his own children, so that was probably Moloch. Evil king. And what you see here now is when Hezekiah takes over, he's down here, the northern kingdom has been decimated. There's still, of course, a remnant there, but we have Assyria comes against Hezekiah. We saw Isaiah, who is working with Hezekiah, in our study of Isaiah, encourage Hezekiah and telling him not to depend on Egypt, not to depend on these other nations, but to depend on God for this battle with Assyria, that God was going to miraculously save them. You see more of the detail of that in 2nd Kings, because the 1st and 2nd Chronicles and 1st and 2nd Kings are very similar. They're just explained a little bit differently and more detailed sometimes in 2nd Kings. So you see here, we just finished in the last video how Hezekiah had prepared the city when Assyria came against them. It was unexpected. They believed that there had been a treaty with Assyria and the southern kingdom, and Assyria had broken it, and now they were coming against Hezekiah. So Hezekiah encourages the people. He refers back to an awesome story that I explained last video in 2nd Kings, where Elisha had overcome the Syrians, and the Syrians were blinded, and he took the Syrians, and it was all totally a supernatural event by God. So he is encouraging the people that God is supernaturally going to fight on their behalf, just like he did with Elisha and the king of Syria. And that ended up, the man of God, Elisha, actually led the people that came against him to the king of Israel. And the king of Israel wanted to kill him. Anyway, that's another story, but he didn't kill him. They were sent back to the king of Assyria. So anyways, so things are going great here. So then we just left off with Sennacherib was boasting, how can your God protect you when none of the other gods of the other kingdoms protected them? You know, just give up. And so he's doing all this psychological warfare against the southern kingdom. Hezekiah is encouraging the people, encouraging the army, stand fast, and he's working with Isaiah. Isaiah's working with him. And it says, let me see. So verse 20 in chapter 32. Now because of this, King Hezekiah and the prophet Isaiah, the son of Amos, prayed and cried out to heaven. Then the Lord sent an angel who cut down every mighty man of valor, leader and captain in the camp of the king of Assyria. So he returned shamefaced to his own land. So that's showing God did exactly like Isaiah said he would. And as Hezekiah, depending on Isaiah's vision from God or word from God, told the people to stand fast and to, not be worried. So the king of Assyria returned shamefaced to his own land, and when he had gone into the temple of his God, some of his own offspring struck him down with the sword there. Thus the Lord saved Hezekiah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem from the hand of Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, and from the hand of all others, and guided them on every side. And many brought gifts to the Lord at Jerusalem and presents to Hezekiah, king of Judah, so that he was exalted in the sight of all nations hereafter. So all the neighboring nations that were being attacked or harassed by Assyria were like, all right, good job, Hezekiah. And so they were bringing him gifts. In those days, Hezekiah was sick and near death, and he prayed to the Lord, and he spoke to him and gave him a sign. So this is some years after he becomes prideful because of the battle of what happened. He begins to take credit for it in some capacity, or somehow his heart was lifted up, and he becomes sick. And he prayed to the Lord, and the Lord spoke to him and gave him a sign. And that goes into more detail in 2 Kings. But Hezekiah did not repay according to the favor shown him, for his heart was lifted up. Therefore, wrath was looming over him and over Judah and Jerusalem. So that shows how the leader plays an important role in his walk with God, how it goes down and affects the kingdom. Because it says, looming over him and over Judah and Jerusalem. Then Hezekiah humbled himself for the pride of his heart, he and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so that the wrath of the Lord did not come upon them in the days of Hezekiah. Hezekiah had very great riches and honor, and he made himself treasuries for silver and for gold, for precious stones, for spices, for shields, and for all kinds of desirable items, storehouses for the harvest of grain, wine, and oil, and stalls for all kinds of livestock, and folds for flocks. Moreover, he provided cities for himself, and possessions of flocks and herds in abundance, for God had given him very much property. This same Hezekiah also stopped the water outlet of Upper Gihon and brought the water by tunnel to the west side of the city of David. Hezekiah prospered in all his works. Now, this is where we have trouble. However, verse 31, regarding the ambassadors of the princes of Babylon, whom they sent to him to inquire about the wonder that was done in the land, God withdrew from him in order to test him, that he might know all that was in his heart. Now, the rest of the acts of Hezekiah and his goodness. So let me just describe that. So this is where, again, in 2 Kings, they go into more detail about this situation. Babylon, who at this point was still under Assyrian, let's see here. So here is Assyria. So Babylon was still under the control of Assyria at this point. But Babylon reaches a place where it comes out from under Assyrian control later, after Hezekiah. And that is who takes, like in the book of Daniel, that's who takes Daniel captive, right? And a lot of the citizens. So so Babylon is beginning to rise, and you see this in here. It says the princes of Babylon. So they sent envoys there to check out what's going on in the southern kingdom, and Hezekiah receives them. And in 2 Kings it says he went and showed them everything, his entire kingdom, all of his armory, all of his gold, all of the precious things, all the things God blessed him with. So clearly there was some kind of flesh in that. It was not of God. And God, it says right here that to know that he withdrew from him in order to test him, that he might know all that was in his heart. And he was reprimanded about this in 2 Kings, and said that, you should never have done that. Those people are going to come and they're going to kill your family. They're going to take your family captive. And Hezekiah it's just such a lame answer. He's like, well, at least there'll be peace in my time. He says something like that in 2 Kings. It's just... So now it says in verse 32, now the rest of the acts of Hezekiah and his goodness, indeed, they are written in the vision of Isaiah the prophet, so in his book, the son of Amoz, and in the book of the kings of Judah and in Israel. So that's talking about 1st and 2nd Kings, right? So again, this, like I've always said, they believe that Ezra is the one who put Chronicles together, and Ezra was a scribe, and he is always citing his sources, right? He's saying that you can find this information that I've gathered together and put in this format in the book of Isaiah, in the Isaiah Chronicles, and also in 1st and 2nd Kings. So clearly there's some kind of documentation. They may not have been in the format they're in now, but there was something that they had that he was referring to. So Hezekiah rested with his fathers, and they buried him in the upper tombs of the sons of David, and all Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem honored him at his death. Then Manasseh, his son, reigned in his place. Now, it's going to be a bad one. Manasseh's a real pain in the butt. But anyway, so that was a great story. So you can just see there the pattern of how they're going up and down, trying to follow God, and how as soon as they get a good king, God's presence and blessing just explodes on the kingdom. So that has great relevance for us, right? So even if we come from a lineage of wicked families or whatever, families that have just, not paid attention to God, not honored God, that we can start anew with our families, right? And so I would just encourage you with that. And just remember, all of these things point to Jesus. Everything in the Old Testament points to Jesus. Jesus is the only way to the Father. There's no way for salvation except through Jesus Christ. And all you have to do is say, Jesus, I give you my life. That's it. And you're in. And then just begin to seek him. Begin to read your Bible. I'm always on people to read their Bible. You cannot know God unless you read the Bible. You cannot know God unless you read the Bible. Don't rely on teachings. Don't rely on your pastor at church. You've got to, begin a faithful Bible reading and get a good study Bible. It helps you understand what you're reading, because at first you're not going to get it. You're not going to understand it. And that's okay. Just be faithful about reading. Even if you don't understand it, just be faithful about trying. And he will meet you. He promises that. He doesn't want to lose any of us. So he wants you to meet with him. All right. So read your Bible. Jesus is coming. Love you. Peace.